Hi everyone. I'm going to show you how to write CSP mechanisms. Okay, so I'm going to start out by opening up a home page of the database. And over here on the left, I'm going to make the screen a little bigger. Under libraries, I'm going to click on shared document and then click on research or training. And there's an Excel list that we've stored in here called suggested CSP hotspot mechanism. So this is basically an Excel version of different examples we've come up in the past with common hotspots that are identified and some suggested mechanisms to use on the CSP for those hotspots. So I'm going to click on that list and download it. Say OK. And log in. I'll wait for that to pull up. Here it is. So I'm going to say enable editing. Make this a little bigger so you can see. So for example, if you're working on your product category and you've done all of your research and it's time to combine hotspots and create your CSP, in a previous video we talked about how to combine hotspots. I'll just briefly go over that again in this video, but that would be the point at which you would write the CSP mechanism. So for example, if you had a product category and energy consumption manufacturing was identified as a hotspot, and you wanted to come into this list and see the other approved mechanisms that have been written for that hotspot, you would just filter by the hotspot. So I'm going to click this and only select energy consumption manufacturing. So that's going to show me there are two suggested mechanisms for this hotspot. Now, the reason why there are two suggested ones is because there might be different combinations of impact categories. So, for example, if your product category talks about something related to climate change and cumulative energy demand, so like energy resource depletion, then you would want to use this mechanism because it most aligns with that. And then if your hotspot only talked about the cumulative energy demand and the resource depletion part, you would want to use this one. So I'm going to show you how to determine, which one of these you would want to use. So I'm going to open up a product category in the database. And for this example, I've created a little test in a test category called tomatoes test. I'm going to pull that up. Okay, I'm going to find a hotspot for tomatoes test. Okay, here we go. So let's say that I'm interested in the energy consumption on farm hotspot. So you see, we've done some research. We've got 4 separate entries in the tomatoes test category for energy consumption on farm, so these need to be combined. So when you're combining, you can either pull up a Word document and kind of write out what you want your CSP mechanism to be ahead of time. So you see we've got these individual dossier mechanisms, and these are more detailed, and they're talking about what the actual paper said. And you notice over here, this mechanism is about ozone depletion, this mechanism is about acidification, this one for cumulative energy demand, this one for global warming potential. So when we combine these and it shows up on the CSP, we actually want to write sort of a summary of all of these individual mechanisms. And that's what the CSP mechanism that shows up in this Excel document is. So let's say we have energy consumption on farm. Now I'm just going to make this into a half window so we can see it all at the same time. Okay, so we're dealing with energy consumption on farm, and I haven't combined this yet because you can decide on your mechanism before or after you combine. So let's say we want to go into this list. We don't want to see the manufacturing hotspot anymore. We want to search for energy consumption on farm. So here it is. Okay, right now there's only one suggested mechanism for energy consumption on farm. Let's look at that. So you can see there's a lot of different impact categories associated with this one, and I'm not sure that they all apply to my case. For example, you'll see there's photochemical ozone formation, and in the CSP mechanism it talks about smog forming emissions, and I don't remember seeing that one listed. Yeah, no, it's not. So in my product category, tomatoes test, this mechanism doesn't really fit because I don't have any references that are supporting that photochemical ozone or smog forming emissions piece of the hotspot. And so what I'm going to do is when I combine these, I want to start out with this suggested mechanism, but then I want to tweak it so that it actually is usable for my case. So I wouldn't want to use this one because it talks about something, the smog forming emissions that are not true, so I'd probably want to just delete that little section. So you can either pull up a Word document. I'll pull up a blank one here, and I could look, before I combine my hotspots, I could, be looking at these and start out with this mechanism. So let's try that. Copy, paste. Okay, make that a little bigger. Okay, so, you can work with it like this before you're combining, and let's see, we got the ozone depletion piece. That's actually not in there, so we would want to add that, so I'm just going to make some notes. Add ozone depletion, acidification, that is in there, so we're okay there. Cumulative energy demand. That cumulative energy demand is covered under the fossil resource depletion, so that piece is covered. Global warming potential, that's talking about the greenhouse gases. That's what contributes to that, so we're okay there. But I don't see this, so we would actually want to remove that. And I need to add something about ozone depletion. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch out these two pieces. So instead of saying smog forming, I'm going to say ozone depleting. Okay, and then it works. And so then, we could use this mechanism going forward. So probably when I go and I combine in this category, that's what I would write. So to combine, then you're just going to go into tomatoes test, go to the hotspots tab, and again, combining hotspots is covered in another video, so I'm just going to go over it really quickly. Sort by the hotspot title to make sure they're all in order. You see these 4 are the ones that I want to combine, so I'm going to click them all. I'm going to say combine selected hotspots, and this would be the point that I would insert that mechanism that we wrote. Okay, so here it is. So everything looks good here, except for I want to get rid of this mechanism, and I want to put that other one in, this one that we wrote. So you could do that at this point, but let's say, just for the sake of this video, that somebody had already combined it and they put some random stuff in here. I don't know, they wrote another mechanism, or maybe they just left it as it was. And sometimes I even like to do this on purpose. I'll just go ahead and get all the combining done, and then I'll go back and write my CSP mechanisms later. And it's also, there's a way to check that and make sure that it's been done correctly. So let's say there's something else written in here. Somebody clicked save, and so on. So now in Tomatoes Test, we only have this one hotspot, and it has all these archives. Okay, so let's say that you're a lead researcher and somebody has already combined the hotspots in a category, and you want to check that those CSP mechanisms correctly reflect the mechanisms that are in the archives. So if you're in Tomatoes Test, you could go into that hotspot, and you could go and you could look at the archives here. But that's not a really good way to view them because you can't see the mechanisms. So in this little drop down, you can click on Hotspot Archive Review. So I'm just going to select that. And then you can see all the information that you need to know, which is the mechanism and the impact categories. So at this point, you could still edit your hotspot, you know, if there's an incorrect mechanism, which of course right now this is incorrect. You could always look at this Hotspot Archive Review to see the mechanisms and the impact categories and repeat that process as we did by going into the suggested CSP mechanisms Excel and then either using it as is or writing your own case that fits your product category a little better. So I do want to use this mechanism. So I'm just going to edit this hotspot. Okay, I'm going to go down here and type this in. It's kind of difficult to navigate all these windows. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to put this in. Okay, so I've typed it all in. And I'm just going to save. We go down to the bottom and click save. And so now if I click on that hotspot, you'll see the correct mechanism. And if you ever want to go and check again in the future and make sure that this mechanism reflects those archives for that hotspot, again, you would just go down to the archives and click the Hotspot Archive Review. And that's it. Actually, there is one more thing that I want to discuss. So just like in this case, you know, there was not a suggested mechanism in the list that perfectly fit the case that we needed. So probably what will happen is in the future, we will add to this list for that case. So I think the one we had was energy consumption on farm. And it was very close to this previous mechanism that we used, but it actually did not have the photochemical ozone, so I'm going to get rid of that. And it did have ozone depletion. Okay. Actually, this shouldn't be in that list. So anyway, so the point is that eventually we should update this suggested mechanisms list to be comprehensive and have all the different cases. So if you think that we need to add a mechanism to the list, just shoot Christy Slay, the research manager, an email, and we'll get this list updated. Thank you.